Sydney with Tastefully Frugal, and today we are going to be talking about envelopes. More importantly, how to address your envelopes with a Cricut. Now, this is a question that we get asked a lot in our Cricut support group is, how do you address envelopes with a Cricut? How do you know what fonts to use? How do you know the placement? So today we're going to go over all of that. And we are going to be addressing envelopes two different ways. We are going to be using the Cricut pens, and then we're also going to be using the Cricut foil transfer system. So I will give you, show you exactly how to use pens and the foil sheets to address your envelopes. We're also going to go over the best and worst pens to use, because there are some pens that work better than others, as well as there's some fonts that work better than others as well. So we'll start off in Design Space so I can show you how to find the best fonts to use for envelopes, as well as how to size everything and how to place them on the mats. And then after that, we'll go ahead and I'll show you on an Air 2 how to write or use a foil to address your envelopes. Now, writing and addressing envelopes is something you can do with all of the Cricut machines. You can do it with the Air 2, you can do it with the Maker, you can also do it with the Joy, and everything that we're going to go over today. No matter what machine you're using, you'll be able to use this tutorial for all the machines. I also put an in-depth blog post together with all the fonts that you can use, as well as more step-by-step, in-depth pictures and things like that, that'll help you make the best decisions when it comes to what colors, pens, fonts, and things like that. So that is linked in the description of this video as well. So let's go ahead and first hop over to Design Space and get started with the design portion of our envelopes. Okay, as always, we're going to start with a blank canvas. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add our text. So this text logo, just click text in the left-hand menu and type your text in. So we'll just type our address in. Obviously, we'll just do the person we're sending it to or the family we're sending it to, their address, city, state, and zip code. So once we have everything added, let me move this up here so you can see when things change. You'll notice when you're working on a new canvas, it's always going to default the font to Cricut Sans. But if you click Cricut Sans, it gives you a list of all the fonts you can choose from. To find the best fonts for writing, click the filter button over here in the top right corner and click Writing. And this will only show the fonts that work well with pens and also with the foil kit. So we're going to use, let's use Babette because that's a good script font, and I want to show you how to connect the letters with script fonts because it can be a little bit different. So as you can see here, the font looks good, but the letters are not spaced out. So to change that, we're just going to go to letter space and we're going to change it. I always like to start with the 0 to see where it looks, and then if it doesn't look good, we can always change it a little bit smaller. If you want anything smaller than 0, just make sure to put a negative sign before you start changing it. So we'll try a few different lengths until we have it, which looks good there. You can also do the same for the letter space, so that would just bring the lines closer together. Again, I like to start with the 0 and then either add more or less, and then we can change the alignment as well so that it's centered. All right, now that we have who we're sending the card to, let's do the return address portion. So you'll notice once you've selected a font on your canvas, if you add more font, like another text box, it will automatically default to whatever font you've used before. So since we've used Babette, it defaulted to Babette. When you create a new canvas, it will go back and default to Cricut Sans. So all right, we have our return address done now, and we know that we need to, let's first change the line spacing and the letter spacing, and then we are going to change the size as well. I like to keep a left alignment for the return address just because that's how I write, and I think it looks better to have everything aligned left. So we'll just move this over and then we'll size this down. This is not the size it's going to be. I'm just sizing it a little bit smaller so we have more room on the canvas to work. You can also change here in the line type. If you wanted to foil it, you'll change where it says from draw to foil and then change whatever foil sheet color you want. But we'll just keep everything to draw for right now. Once we have our text done, now we need to add our, we're going to add a square and change the size to be the same size as our envelope. So I'm using A2 envelopes, which are 5.5 inches wide by 4 and 3.75 inches tall. So the first thing you want to do is unclick that little lock so that you can change the height and width independently, and then just put your height and width in. Once you have that done, I like to change the color of the envelope to white just so I can see what I'm working with. And then I'll go ahead and I'll move my text over. If it goes behind the square, just click up here and click send to front, and it will send that to the front, and we'll just size it down so it's a good size. Looks good on the envelope. And then we'll do the same thing with our who we're sending it to. We'll click send to front, and then we'll size it down. All right, and then we just need to move this. Oops, didn't mean to move the envelope there. Let's go ahead and undo that. Click who you're sending it to and just size it where you would on the envelope. Once you have everything sized how you'd like, we're going to attach it, but first we're going to take away the square. Since we don't need to cut the square, we don't really need that there. But then we'll just select both the return address and who we're sending it to and click attach. That way when we send it to the mat, it will be spaced this way. I want to duplicate this though, so I can show you how to space things on the mat on the next screen. So let's go ahead and click make it. And it will automatically, whether you're drawing or cutting, it defaults the placement so that you're using as least amount of material as possible. But we are more worried about where the placement of things are. So we're going to move the second one down here to just below that 6 inches tall and 1 inch wide. Since we're going to be lining up the envelope right on that line, we want it to be a little bit lower. And then we're going to do the same thing with the first one, but we're going to line it up to the 1 by 1, just a little bit beneath that. So that is all you need to do to line everything up. Now let's talk about some of the pen options and tips for foiling. All right, now we have our envelopes designed. We have them spaced in design space to get the best results, whether we're using the pens or the foils. But now let's talk about tips for making sure that your perfect design in design space looks perfect on the envelope. First, let's talk about pens. There are 4 different types of pens that you can use. There is a fine point, which is a 0.4. There is an extra fine point, which is 0.3. Then you have your glitter tips, which are 0.8, and the medium tips, which are 1.0. For your envelopes, because they are such a small size, you want to go with the thinnest tip possible. I tried out dozens and dozens of envelopes. I tried out all the different pens, all the different foil tips, and found that the best results came from the fine and the extra fine point pens. So think about that when you are picking your pen colors in your designs. You want to look for the fine, which is, it has at the edge or the bottom of the marker has an F, or the extra fine, which has an XF. So that is best pens to use for envelopes. You still can use the glitter and you still can use the marker. You just won't have as good of results. One thing that's hard with the glitter pens is they don't dry as quickly, so they do run a little bit. But the glitter does add a fun touch to it. So you can really use any of these pens, but for best results, I definitely recommend using the fine point and the extra fine point pens. Now let's talk about the foil kits and give you some quick tips for getting the most out of your designs. As I mentioned in the design space portion of this tutorial, I found it's easiest to just do 2 cards per mat and have them spaced out right under that 1 inch by 1 inch, the first card on the mat, and the second card, the 1 inch by the 6 inches. The reason being is that's the easiest way to get the correct placement on the envelopes. I tried it doing 4 cards per mat and I just couldn't really get a good placement. Another thing that's really important with the foil is making sure 2 things. One, that your foil, when you put it on your envelope, is flat. If there's any bumps or wrinkles in it, it can get caught on that foil transfer kit and it doesn't give you a full press. Another thing, making sure it's flat and also making sure it's attached well. I have found the best results is just by using painter's tape. This seems to help the foil attach to the envelope and the mat a little bit better than the tape that was included with the foil transfer kits. If you don't have the painter's tape, you can definitely use a tape that comes with the transfer kits. I just prefer to use the painter's tape because I think it works a little bit better. I also cut the painter's tape in half. I'll show you when I'm putting the foil on the mat what I mean by that. But this really has given me the best results when it comes to putting or keeping the foil attached where it needs to be. So let's go ahead and let me show you on the mat. So we've done the design and design space. Let me show you how I space things out on the physical mat, and then we'll go ahead to start foiling and drawing. All right, let's start with foil since that's what we were just talking about. As you can see, I'm lining up my envelopes right on that 1x1 line and the 6x1 line and mark. I am going to line my foil sheets up just a little bit above the top of the envelope. I found that sometimes the foil tip, if it presses into the tape, like to get through the tape to the foil transfer sheet, you don't get as clean of a press on with the foil. So I try to make it so that the foil transfer kit is not pressing onto the tape at all. As you can see here, the painter's tape does make it easier to get that smooth finish and have a tight press versus wrinkles in your foil sheet. I also like to do the same sides at once. So I'll do like the top and the bottom at once, and then left and right, or left and right and then top and bottom, just to make sure I get all the wrinkles out too. So once we have everything set up on our mat, then we are going to go ahead and put the mat into the machine. You want to remove your whatever blade you have in your machine and put your foil. Once it's in the B clamp, you can click the flashing C button and begin to foil. Now this process does take a little bit longer just because it is pressing into every little word, but it is really fun to watch and see the designs come to life on the foil kit. And then even more fun when you get to take the foil transfer kit off and see what it looks like. Right now I'm using this font Carly, so it looks really weird, like there's a bunch of jagged lines, but it turns out really cool. Carly is one of my favorite fonts to use with the foil transfer kit, just because it fills in the letter, and it really gives it a pop of shimmer and shine, and it's just a really fun font. So Carly is starts with a K. I think this one is called Carly Sketch. Once everything's done, you'll just click the flashing C button again to unload your mat. And once your mat is unloaded, just slowly peel away your foil to see the finished result. All right, now let's do the pens. We're going to load our mat the same as we did with the foil kits, with the two envelopes, one on the 1, one on the 6. But instead of replacing the blade, you are just going to put the pen in the clamp A and make sure that it's pressed down all the way down. It might feel like you're breaking the machine, but I promise you're not. You want to make sure that that pen is in all the way so that it can get the full press and the full draw. And then you just hit the flashing C button and let the maker, or this is the Air 2, or if you're working with your Joy, do its job. When everything is done, it will unload the mat and that flashing C button will come up again, and you can unload it. If you are doing different pen types, you will get a pause in the machine when it's done with the one envelope so that you can load another pen, and then just click the flashing C button once you get that pen loaded, and it'll start drawing again. So as you can see, using your Cricut to address your envelopes is not only super easy, but it really adds a nice personalized touch to your cards. Whether you're sending Christmas cards, wedding invitation, birthday cards, or just happy mail, having that personalized touch that you can choose the fonts, you can choose the colors, really does give your card that extra wow factor. As I mentioned before, there is a full blog post with more details on everything we went over today. I've left the link to that in the description of this video. If you have any questions, go ahead and leave a comment down below, and I will get back to those as soon as I can. And I'd love to have you subscribe to Tastefully Frugal for more Cricut tips, tricks, and tutorials. Have a great day, guys.